Hi guys, welcome to lesson 2 of unit 1, Foundations of Environmental Systems and Societies. In this class we really are going to focus on environmental value systems. And so now that we know a little bit about the background of the environmental movement and the history of how these value systems came to exist, we're going to study what are value systems, how do we develop them in general, and how are they related to our understanding of the environment. So the first important question is, what are value systems in general? What are your values? So to define values, and for those of you that are enrolled in a full IB program, this ties in a lot to things you might talk about in Theory of Knowledge or TOK class. Your values are your principles or standards of behavior, and it's how you judge what is important in your life. There are all different areas that you can have values in. You can have social values, work values, values around the relationships in your life, and you can place different emphasis on different sets of values. And there's like a lot of really interesting conversations you can get into about moral relativism and when one value might be more important than another. The difference between the values that you assume you have and the values that you actually display in your life. And a lot of that ties into the environment. So let's talk about that a little bit. I'm going to put up a list, and I want you to think, what are some of the things on this list that you value? So if you could pick your top 3 things you value between music, grace, trust, art, beauty, love, status, nature, ambition, wealth, freedom, creativity, wonder, and religion. What 3 things would you put at the top of that list? I would pick nature, freedom, and I'm sort of split between creativity and wonder. But I think that people would pick all different ideas from this list as things that they value the most. And the things that you value the most in life shape how you look at the world around you. An example that's really specifically related to the environment is if you look at these 2 pictures and think about how your values shape your attitude and how you responded to those questions in the last slide. When you think about the environment, do you value the idea that there are trees more, or the idea that those trees can make us paper more? Neither answer is wrong, but it's important to consider that that shapes how you look at the world around you. So when we talk about people and how they put forward their environmental values, there are 3 different sets of environmental values that we can talk about. And I'm going to try again to make my little pointer. Let's see if I can do this better. The first thing that we can talk about are technocentrics. And if we're talking about a technocentric, that means that we're talking about someone that believes technological developments provide solutions to environmental problems. The extreme view of a technocentric is someone called a cornucopian, someone that believes that with technological advances, we have all of the resources we need on the planet for all of the people that could ever live here to exist. A cornucopia of resources for a cornucopia of people. The next point of view that you can take when you look at the environment is what's called an anthropocentric. And if you're an anthropocentric or an anthropocentrist, you believe that humans must sustainably manage the global system. So we don't just have a wealth of resources based on our technology, but we have resources, and it's up to us to manage their distribution to create the most fair world possible. The third major school of environmental values is ecocentrics. And if you're ecocentric, you put ecology and nature as central to humanity and existence on the planet. The extreme viewpoints of ecocentrists go into deep ecologists and biorights people. And those biorights people are people that believe that all living things should have exactly the same set of rights, of living rights. Like you have the same rights as a mosquito or a plant. And deep ecologists are the people that believe that we really shouldn't do anything at all to interfere with natural systems. We should try our best to just live in harmony with the planet as it is if we weren't even here. In the Environmental Systems and Societies course, you're asked a lot, and you'll actually be asked in your homework assignment for this very video, to compare and contrast these different environmental value systems as they relate to different environmental problems. So let's take a look at some practice environmental problems and see how we can talk about different environmental value systems. If you think about case studies for environmental value systems, there are a lot of issues in the world that need environmental value systems applied to them. The first that we'll look at is rebuilding an environment after a major natural disaster like Hurricane Harvey, the hurricane that was such a big problem in Houston in the fall of 2017 in the United States. So rebuilding after Hurricane Harvey. An anthropocentrist would probably say we need to put good policies in place and we need to have a human effort that deals with that rebuilding. So if you are let's see how I can do this. If you are anthropocentric, I'm not going to write out the whole word, but you believe in policy decisions and government to help deal with environmental problems like natural disasters. Policy and government. That's so fun how it makes a little flash. All right. If you were, let's go back and think about if you were technocentric and you had to deal with rebuilding after Hurricane Harvey. So if you were technocentric, you wouldn't necessarily think that the government had all of the solutions to that problem. A technocentric person would probably call up somebody like Elon Musk and say, listen, we've had this major natural disaster. We need technological solutions as fast as possible. Machines and different software programs to see where the most damage has been. And we're going to rely on private contracting and computers, machines and computers, to deal with solving our environmental problems. So that's more what you do if you were technocentric. What about if you were ecocentric? That's a hard one for a lot of people. And if you were ecocentric, what you would probably say is that natural disaster happened for a reason, and it's not our place to interfere in the natural processes of the world. So you would say, leave nature alone. Let the systems rebuild as they can in natural time, and don't interfere. Human societies don't have the right to interfere with what's going on in nature. You leave nature alone. You can do this for almost any environmental problem that we face as a society. Generally, what happens in environmental problem management is we have sort of a blend of all of these different environmental value systems, and we mix anthropocentric and technocentric and ecocentric solutions all together to try to find the best overall solution for a problem. You can apply these to anything going on in the world today. Population increase and food production, how much of that should be managed by policy decisions, how much of it should be managed by technologies like lab-created meat, how much of it should be managed by the ecocentric view of just changing your diet to fit in with the world. If you look at global energy use, how much of that should be managed by creating the technologies to encourage more energy use, how much of it should be managed by policy decisions, and how much of it should be managed by the ecocentric view that maybe we just shouldn't be increasing global energy use by almost 50% in the next 20 years. Maybe we should stop being so reliant on electricity. And when we look at these sort of complicated scenarios, it helps to keep in mind where people are coming from, what their value system is, because that is what helps people communicate, is understanding each other's value systems. So with these value systems in mind, your homework is a optional reading in the Environmental Systems and Societies book. If you have that textbook, go ahead and read pages 10 to 16. But what I'm really interested in having you do is a writing practice. On your paper 2, you are going to need to write an essay-style response 2 times. For 2 of the long response questions that you choose, there will be an essay. It's section B, part C. Those essay responses are always worth 9 points, and the 9 points are mark banded. So they look at the strength of your introduction, the strength of your argument, the strength of your counter-argument, and the strength of your conclusion. So try to write a short 4-paragraph essay evaluating the implications of a technocentric and an anthropocentric value system in the context of environmental problems. So give the benefits and drawbacks of both of those types of systems with at least one specific kind of environmental problem in mind. So give a specific example, something like what we just looked at, rebuilding after a natural disaster, or food production, or carbon dioxide pollution, and talk about the benefits and drawbacks of each of those value systems. When you feel like you have a good response, you can go ahead and check out the review video for this lesson. I'll be going over the mark scheme for these Part C questions. And again, these are super important questions because it decides almost 20 points of your 65-point score on your paper 2. And whenever you feel like you have a good answer, I will see you in the review. See you there.